Hi, welcome to Suburbia Press Live. My name is William Beam, and today we're going to be talking about 7 steps to help you earn more revenue. And the way we're going to be talking about that is with the messaging that you put out for your business in order to attract the audience, speak to their internal and external desires, even their philosophical desires, and come up with a message that resonates with them so that you can sell more. And that's really what we're talking about is brand messaging. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And here we go. If you haven't heard of this book before, it is kind of a staple in the industry for online marketing and actually not just online marketing, for business marketing all over the place. It is based upon this book and by Donald Miller. He also has an online course. He does live workshops. He'll do in person training. But the whole idea of this book is about building your brand so that you're actually known as the go to person for something. And that something, could be anything that you want. It could be for marketing particular stuff to a particular audience. So if you're a real estate agent, then how do you market to people that you want to sell to? And yeah, you could be known for somebody who works in a certain neighborhood. Maybe you're known for somebody who works with high end clientele. Maybe you try to find affordable housing. The same thing is true if you have a nonprofit. You still are marketing your nonprofit service. So the idea is how do you communicate with people who are interested in what you have to offer? For online people like myself, that could be folks who have a course that solves a problem, people who have a membership that guides people through to resolve their issues. Or maybe it's something else that you do entirely different. But if you're in business, you need to speak the language of your customer. And this book lays it out rather easily. So, what we're going to do today is kind of go through the 7 steps of the story brand framework. And I think you're going to like it. If you're interested in this book, I don't have a link for it, but you can find this at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookstore, Apple Books, whatever you prefer. Uh, Bought it for about $15 myself some time ago, and I think the price is very reasonable. It's hardcover, it's paperback. You can probably get it, like I said, it's on Apple Books or Kindle, so you can find it in whatever format that you prefer. So this is the story brand framework in a nutshell. There is a character, and that is the person that you're trying to serve. And the character has a problem. And then the character meets a guide. That is you. And the guide gives them a plan, calls them to action. And then there's 2 different scenarios you want to paint towards the end. It ends in success and it helps them avoid failure. So failure is kind of like a little bit of fear. In other words, you're saying, if you don't buy my course, if you don't uh, shop with me, whatever it is that you're offering, this is the consequences of not acting. And you don't want to use too much fear, but as Don puts it in his book, fear is kind of like salt on your overall meal. It's there to enhance a little bit, but you don't want too much because fear based marketing ultimately fails. So let's go ahead and take a look. So, what we're talking about in story terms, and a lot of what he writes in the book is really based off of screenwriting, and he's written a screenplay himself. But there's something called the hero's journey, and you're going to recognize this from all sorts of movies. So, the thing to keep in mind is that you're not the hero. A lot of websites talk about all the things that they can do for you and why they're so great. And that's not really what your customer is looking for. So, you make the audience your hero. You're not the hero of your brand story. So, you need to define your audience's problems. In other words, you need to understand who it is that is the character in this story, and they are the hero. So, if you're selling something, who wants it? Who needs it? Identify why they need it, understand and get inside of their head. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail coming up. But you are the guide. So you're the one who has the experience, the knowledge, and also you've got a plan. The nice thing about having that plan is it's comforting to the hero who needs someone to show them the way. So you create a clear plan, something that you can mention in just a sentence or two. You can come up with this plan, and it's based again upon your past experience, your knowledge, your wisdom. That is what a guide offers to the hero. And then you want to include a clear call to action. This is really the journey. So the call to action could be as simple as buy now, register today, something that's unambiguous that tells people this is what you must do. If you try to get clever with the call to action, well, people can't read your mind. They may misinterpret what you're saying. So you want to be very clear and very specific with your call to action. You want to discuss the potential for failure. If they don't do business with you, well, what's the potential outcome of that? What are the repercussions of not taking action? But hopefully, you want to end the story with success. And that means that they do business with you, you guide them to the solution to their problem, and they have a happy ending. That's really what the hero's journey is. So let's take a look at an example of that. And in this case, I've chosen Star Wars because, as you might be able to tell from the posters behind me, I'm a Star Wars fan. So Luke Skywalker is obviously the hero of the story, and he leads a meaningless life on a distant planet. He wants to get away, and of course, his uncle Owen is saying, "No, I need you for another season. Stay here." And it's like Luke complains, "Well, it looks like I'm going nowhere." Then the evil Empire kills his family. So clearly, Luke has a problem. Everything he's ever known is destroyed. Obi-Wan becomes his guide. Obi-Wan is experienced in the ways of the Force. He was a Jedi Knight. He has all this knowledge, but he's kind of old now. And it's like, he's even says in the movie, I'm getting too old for this kind of stuff. So he trains Luke to use the Force. And that is the plan. Understanding the Force, this is the plan. This is how you solve your problems. So he says, there's a call to action is when he says, we've got to return this droid to the rebellion. And the first times you give the hero a call to action, they potentially reject it. In fact, in screenplays, they reject it quite a lot. It wasn't until the evil empire killed his family that Luke said, there's nothing here for me now. I'm going to have the call to action. So don't think that just because you put a call to action out once, that's going to be the final nail in the coffin for everybody. Some people are going to need a bit more pushing, prodding, nudging, or more experience with you until they take that call to action. So if he doesn't act, the Empire crushes the rebellion. But if he does, he destroys the Death Star. And that is the hero's journey in a nutshell. So here's the story brand framework. We've kind of gone over the highlights of it, but let's dive in just a little bit more. So your customer is a character, and the customer is the hero of the story. Don't make the mistake of putting yourself out there as the hero. The truth is, the customer is the character who wants something. Understand their desires. And we're going to have a little exercise later on in this that I'll show you some ways that you can think of what do they want and how you can kind of fill this in. So summarize what you offer in a few words. It needs to be very simple. And, one of the examples that they gave in the book is a customer they had. Be the leader that everyone likes. In other words, if you're going through leadership training, what do you really want? You want to obviously to lead the employees and the staff that you have, but you want them to respect you and do the work that you want to do. And it's easier to do that for someone who's a good boss rather than a bad boss. So that was the idea. It's like summarize what it is that you do and what's driving the customer to action. What is it that they're having? There's going to be external thoughts, internal thoughts, and philosophical issues. We'll talk about those in just a bit. So the customer has a problem, and you want to generate interest in whatever it is that you offer as a solution by describing the problem that your brand solves. If you do e-bikes, maybe that helps you get rid of traffic. If you have a course, well, what problem are you solving? If someone takes your course, they're starting off at spot A, they want to get to spot Z. What do you offer to give them stepping stones and create a transition from where they are to where they want to be? So that's what you want to do is you want to generate some, you want to understand the problem that you're trying to fix, and you want to generate some ideas inside the customer's head. So, okay, this person gets it. You look for an internal problem like frustration or confusion. So let me expand on this a little bit. I talked about external problems. External problems, let's say for people who are in my community, they want to build a website. Well, the website external problems are going to Google or YouTube, the things you search for. How do I build a website? What tools do I need to know? And they might find a lot of information. Matter of fact, information is everywhere. But the problem is, information alone doesn't solve their internal problems. What are they really worried about? I hate my boss. I don't want to work for other people anymore. If I don't do this, I'm not going to make enough money to survive. I'm worried about getting laid off. Those kind of things are internal problems for someone who wants to start their own business. And maybe they'll start it as a side hustle rather than just quitting their job right away, but they're seeing a future for themselves. And you want to speak to those internal issues. What are they really thinking? And basically, those are the why to the external problems of, okay, I'm looking for something on Google or YouTube. Why are you doing that? Those are the internal problems. Philosophical problems could be as simple as good versus evil. And not everybody is going through that kind of thing. But what is the philosophical reason that they're going through this? Is there something that they're looking at for a better life? Do they see a problem with where they are? And is there a better way of life to go where they want to be? Some people do this with diet, with exercise, whatever it is that your potential customer is thinking about philosophically, that helps you as well. But I think your strongest point is going to be looking for those internal problems. You're asking, why do they want to do this? You want to find their pain points. What's really the key to driving what they want to do? And for example, in the economy today, people are talking about recession. We're seeing a lot of layoffs with a lot of tech companies. Disney World is laying off. Other companies are laying off as well. It's like they're getting prepared for hard times. Well, that's a pain point for a lot of people. They don't want to get laid off. They've got a family to support. They've got to take care of themselves. Whatever the pain point is, and it doesn't have to be an economical pain point. It could be, as I mentioned, diet and exercise. It could be fitness. Maybe they have health problems. Whatever it is that you're serving, you need to find out the pain points. And you know what? This is the beauty of live when you're going through all this stuff and you finally realize, hey, the camera's not really on me. So let's go on. If there is a villain or a problem that you can resolve, you want to be able to state that too. So, who's the bad guy? And the bad guy may not necessarily be a person, it may be a concept, but you want to identify, is there a villain that they're trying to get away from? And that villain might be financial, it might be any number of things, but you want to find a villain, which is you know, is it a bad boss you want to get away from? Is it economic security? Whatever the case is going to be. Health issues, bad health is the villain, good health is the solution. So now that you know you have a character who has a problem, they need someone to help them. And this is where you step in. So you empathize with the problem because obviously, if this is something that you're serving, you ought to know how it feels to have that problem because you've probably come up with a solution to it. Show that you're the expert with the answers. And one of the things I want to emphasize here is you want to be the go to person for the problem that you're solving. If you think about this as far as who are experts, they're people who talk about the same thing over and over again in their free social content, in their workshops, in their training, in their memberships. These are folks who are known as experts in what they do. And it doesn't mean that they only do one thing, but they're the go to person for what they do. So, for example, if you're looking at memberships, I'm going through Stu McLaren's workshop now. He is the go to guy for memberships. If you want to build a course, Amy Porterfield has Digital Course Academy. She is the go to person for building a signature course. And Pete Vargas is another person. If you want to get on stage and speak in front of audiences, he's the guy that people go to for training to learn that. Now, are they the only people? No, of course not. But they're well known probably because they focus on one thing. They do other things. For example, Amy Porterfield has List Builder Society for building your email list. I'm a customer of that, and it's a very good course. But she's known for being the person helping online entrepreneurs who want to build a signature digital course. So that's how these folks are demonstrating that they're the expert with the answers. And you want to provide them with the tools and knowledge they need to succeed. People want a path, they want a plan. They want to know, what do I do? How do I do it? And that kind of helps them realize they're going to save time, and overall, they're going to save money because they don't have to piece it together themselves. And the problem with somebody who's going to Google and going to YouTube to search for stuff is they'll find information, but they don't know if they found all the information. It's like the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. So they don't know if they're missing a piece of the puzzle. So this is where the plan comes in. You're going to offer a 3 to 4 step plan that makes it easy for the customers to do business with you. Now, your course or membership or whatever it is that you're offering may actually have a few more steps, but for the marketing purpose of it, you want to keep it simple. And I think 3 steps is perfect. So you want to tell them step A, here's where you begin and why. Step B, here's the next thing you need to do. And step C, here's how you finish up. And this could vary depending on what you want to do. So in my case, I don't know if you've been on any of the past lives that I had here, but we had some folks who decided um, that they were interested in building their own website, and they've called me and they've asked me questions. So I decided, okay, there's a need that I can serve. But most people who teach a course on building a website concentrate only on the technical details. I think there's more to it than that. And it starts off with a commitment and building your business and trust factors. So that is step A for me. The next step is kind of what we're talking about here: build your messaging. And then the next step, assemble your website. Now, that's a very simplified look, but it also tells people, I've been through this before. I can help you do the same thing. It's not as hard as you think, and you'll get support going along the way. And those are trust factors, again, that makes it easy for somebody to try and do business with you. So, your clear plan makes customers feel comfortable. That's what you want to get out of this framework, is to make people feel comfortable with you, that, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I can help you do what you need to do. You want to address any concerns or objections. And people are always going to have objections. That's okay. Part of the objection process, even if they're not thinking of this consciously, they're testing you. They want to know, can you overcome their objections? Because if you can't, why would they do business with you? But if they say, well, what about this? You should be able to come up and say, that's not a problem because XYZ. And you want to answer questions in a timely manner. You want to overcome objections as to why they shouldn't do business with you. Because if you can't overcome an objection as to why they should not do business with you, they're not going to do business with you. So be prepared for questions and objections. And obviously, you need to tell them what to do in order to succeed. And that is what your plan is all about, is giving them a path to success. So the call to action, this is really straightforward. Challenge them to act and buy something. Don't give them something like learn more, check prices. I've been down that road. It doesn't work. People don't really want to click to learn more. They don't want to click to check prices. They want to see buy now. If you've done a good job of explaining and understanding their problem, empathizing with it, and showing why you're the guide and you have a plan, then buy now is a strong call to action. Register now if it's what you're doing for a course. Book an appointment, schedule a meeting. Those are things like, for example, I mentioned a real estate agent as a potential person. So they're going to need you to meet, and then they can listen to you, they can show you homes, but you've got to act. You've got to get on their calendar. And that's why you need a strong, clear call to action. And you want a button that says something just like what we've been talking about: buy now, register now, and make sure that everybody knows that button stands out and they know exactly what to do because you've kind of convinced them to do that. Now, there is a possibility that your description hasn't quite won them over yet. So the next thing is give them something to get in your network, to get on your email list, some way to make contact. So it could be free information like a PDF, could be a free trial of your service, could be samples if you have that. And I don't know if you've got a product based service or not, but if they're not buying right now, get them in your network. So that's where these things, the free information, free trials, those things will get them started, because some people want to dip their toes in the water before they're going to spend money. It's kind of like the first date with somebody. Hi, I'm having a wonderful time. Great. Will you marry me? No. So would you like to go on another date? Yeah, that'd be fine. Will you marry me? No. You go on another date, and eventually you might get to the point where they marry you. That's kind of what this process is with offering free information. You didn't get the sale up front, but that doesn't mean you quit. You get them in your network, and then you keep following up. You keep making more dates with them until they buy. If you have testimonials or stories from previous clients and customers, use those. That is something called social proof. And that kind of helps alleviate some fears from some people. Have they done this before? Well, if you've got social proof and you can show these testimonials, then that shows that they're happy with you, they're satisfied. It's a recommendation, and that's something else that will help with your call to action. So, we want to talk about avoiding failure. And this is where I mentioned a little bit about fear. And you don't want to overdo this, but you want people to understand the consequences of inaction. So you want to communicate what's at stake to drive customers to take action. What happens if they don't do business with you? Well, the first thing is they're still in the status quo. They've looked, but they haven't done anything. So they have not made any progress on their journey from A to Z. So you make sure they understand that, yeah, you haven't done anything. And the problems that you had that brought you here to look at this stuff still exist. You want to share potential consequences. Well, what's going to happen next? So you've identified the stakes, but what are the other consequences? You may get laid off. You may not have the beautiful home that you want. You may not lose the weight that you want. You may get disease from being out of shape. You don't want to hit them too hard over the head with strong fear tactics, but you also don't want to be so subtle that they overlook them. So think about something that is kind of in between a subtle reference and strong over the head reference. Look for moderation when you're talking about things that could happen. What are the potential consequences if they don't take action? And then you want to show them the future state. You want to show them the possibilities. What happens if they buy your product or service, and you help them envision the life that they have when their problems are solved? How are they going to feel? Show them what success looks like for their journey, not for yours, for their journey. You want to say, okay, and this is where testimonials can help. You can actually find some people that may say, here's how my life or my world was changed based upon using your product or service. So what we're going to talk about next is something called a messaging map. And this is the area where I said we're going to try to get inside the head of your potential audience. So what you're doing is you're using contrast. You're looking at where they are now and where they could be in the future. And it's really the same exercise for both. So you're going to make two lists, now and in the future. And you're going to describe what your customer is thinking, feeling, and doing. And after using your product or service, you're going to describe what your customer is thinking, feeling, and doing. So what's the difference between what they're thinking, feeling, and doing right now, and then again after they've gone through the transition? You want to use contrast of the pain versus now to the relief that they get later to craft your message. So let's go through a little bit of an exercise. Thinking. They're not sure where to start. There's no plan to succeed. They're worried about the cost. Those are kind of the external motivators that gets them to go to Google. What do I have to do? I have to go do a search. I have to go find something. They're not sure where to start, so they've got to find something. Their feelings, they could be overwhelmed. For people who are building their website for the first time, that's quite a complicated thing if no one's ever shown you how to do it. And they're confused. They're frustrated because they're trying to do something and it seems complicated. And if they don't have a guide or a plan, then it just doesn't really fit together for them. And doing. So I mentioned they're doing Google and YouTube searches. They're reading forums. They're asking other people. They're trying to find out, how do I build this website? But the problem is, doing that is not going to give them the complete answer to starting their online business. So future state. They're thinking, I can do this, because they have the confidence that they need, which is one of the things we're going to talk about here, of feeling. They feel confident, supported, and relieved. In other words, when they've met the guide who has a plan, they understand that they can do what they want to do. The future state that they want is in sight. And they feel good about themselves, that this is not as hard as I thought it was. I can make it happen. Might take a little bit of work, but I can make it happen. And I feel good about it. And now they're organized. They're taking action. They're achieving results. So that is what you're looking for, the contrast between now, when they're having the problem, and future, where they're going to be. So I know this looks ugly, but I want you to take this as a template. We help customer, that's your character, go from, and you're going to take some of the things that you wrote down on the first list from now, 1, 2, and 3, and then you're going to do the same thing with the future state. So we help customer go from worried, upset, frustrated, confused, whatever those words are that you chose, to confident, secure, and relieved. So that is kind of a bit of a statement. What do you offer people? Well, we're offering you a path to success. And what I want you to notice here is I'm not talking about what could be in the product or service that you have. I'm talking about the mental and emotional state that customers are in when they're buying something or considering buying something, and what do they want to feel when they're done. And that's what you're doing here is you're crafting a message saying, I understand, you're showing empathy, you understand the feelings that they're having now, but you're saying it's okay, I can help you get to the state that you want to be. So the idea is you establish your brand as the authority. Whatever it is that you do, be known for something. You're going to be the authority. And this is going to drive everything that you do because people don't buy stuff, they buy results. If I go off and buy myself a new barbecue grill or smoker, it's because I wanted to do something that either I can't do right now or my current product doesn't serve or support. And I bring that up because I just cooked a brisket yesterday on my Weber kettle and it tastes great. But you know what? I knew if I had an offset smoker, I could do a lot better job. That's the kind of thing that motivates me if I'm going to make a purchase like that. And that's not a small purchase. I love doing smoked stuff on for barbecue, and I want to get as good at it as I can. Why am I going to spend money on another tool when I've got one? Well, you want a result. And one of the problems, let's say, for example, again with this Weber kettle, one of the problems that I have is in order to check the fire, I take off that kettle cover and then I lose all the heat that's cooking whatever it is that I'm smoking. Well, with an offset, your firebox is on the side, and then your grill grate is elsewhere in another container, the bigger container. So I can modify the fire if I need to add more fuel to it or if I need to stoke it up to a higher temperature without losing heat inside of the main cooking chamber. That is my motivation for wanting to have a smoker. If somebody wants to sell me a smoker, they need to understand where I'm coming from and why I want to buy something. What result do I want to get? And that's why I'm talking about people don't buy stuff. I'm not buying a smoker just to have a smoker. I want a result from buying that smoker. Please be consistent. And you want to, everything you say and share follows this framework. So I'm talking about your email newsletter, your social media content. If you're doing any kind of live stuff like I'm doing here right now, or whatever messages you're doing are going to follow the same framework because that's how you be consistent. That's how you get your brand across. I was at a conference where Amy Porterfield was speaking, and she talked about this a bit. She says, I'm not afraid of giving away stuff for free. When somebody comes and joins my course, I want them to know what they're getting. I'm going to teach them the same thing. The difference is, I'm going to teach them what in my free content. I'm going to teach them how in my course, but it's going to be about the same thing. And that's how she became known for the person doing the Digital Course Academy. So, like I said, when people look for a signature course tutor, they go to Amy Porterfield. Keep in mind, you're the guide that your audience needs, and that is your responsibility for being in business. Whatever it is that you're servicing or selling, you're the guide. You're not the hero. So use this everywhere, particularly on your home page. If you're going to have sections from top down to the bottom, you want to use this framework. You want to use this on landing pages for the products or services that you sell. You're going to use it in your email messages, your social media posts, anywhere you communicate about your brand, because you're being consistent, you're talking about the same thing, and there's going to be many aspects of what you're talking about. Your niche, even though it's limited down, still has a lot of different things to talk about. And you're always going to be talking about what your niche is, but there are so many elements and components to it that you can break that up and talk about it all year long and still stay within your lane on the road. And if you have a team, if you're in a business with employees, make sure everyone understands this framework and they use it. You want to make sure everybody is consistent with your brand messaging. So, just to recap what we talked about, your character is the hero. The character has a problem and he meets a guide. That's you or your brand who gives them a plan that's going to help them understand how they can solve their problems. He calls them to action, that helps them avoid failure that ends in success. And that is the simple 7 step formula to more revenue. Because when you empathize using this formula, you're going to make more sales. So, just like we had at the end of this show, I wanted this little message from Brad from Fast Times at Ridgemont High explaining the rules of Bronco Burger. Learn it, know it, love it. All right, that is our live for today. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And until next time, thank you so much. I'm William Bean with Suburbia Press. Please feel free to come visit me over at suburbiapress.com and we'll connect there.